Bunch of years ago, I was asked to give a talk to a writing organization out in Spokane, Washington. This would be a 2 hour talk about what would come to be essentially fearless writing before I called it that. Now, I had done theater when I was a young man. I had given one 10-minute talk once out on Vashon Island at a little writers conference, but I never stood in front of an audience for 2 hours with a little break after 1 hour and just talked about creativity and writing. This was a new experience for me. And I was a little nervous about it, even though I'd prepared, a little projector slideshow, PowerPoint. But I was kind of worried about it. And so I showed up and people came in and there they all were. And I started talking to them. And I had a sense that if I didn't keep the energy going, if I paused, and if I wasn't interesting, if I wasn't funny, then they would all just, as one, lose interest and get up and leave. And so for the first 10 or 15 minutes, it was like I was trying to be funnier than I was, a little more entertaining than I was, a little smarter than I was. I didn't feel I could just be me because just me, had never spoken and engaged a group of strangers for 2 hours before. And so there I was, sort of trying to puff myself up, give lots of energy for the first 15 minutes or so. But in the middle of it, I had this idea for story. I just came to me that I wanted to tell. And I've been telling stories all my life. And so as the idea came to me, I started telling the story. But because it was just a story that I told many people before, I allowed myself to simply tell it the way I tell it, even though there was a audience and not just one person. But there really wasn't that much of a difference. And as I did, something settled down in me. And I thought, oh, I get it. Especially as something settled down in me and I could see people smiling, I could see them attentive. Even as I paused, even as I allowed myself to reflect on what I was saying, I could feel something settle down in me. And I thought, oh, this is all I got to do. I just got to be myself. And I think that is one of the hardest things for artists to do, to understand that our job is just to be ourselves, to not be funnier than ourselves, to not be more clever than we are, more entertaining than we are, to just be ourselves. And in fact, our expression, our art should be a deep dive into what that is, into what makes us uniquely ourselves. And that can be a little difficult, I think, because there is something about who we are that feels pretty ordinary to us. We don't, because it feels ordinary to us because we live with it every day. And we think that can't be enough because when we're entertained by other artists, there's something about them that feels bigger than just the ordinary life we're leading. And to some degree, artists, when they're doing their work, whether it's writing or on stage or on the screen or on the canvas, are focused in a way they don't focus when they go about their life. And you know this too. You know that when you're writing and you're in the zone, that is not the way you lead your life. I've talked about this numerous times on this channel. So in that way, we're all alike. But when we see artists, we see them sort of at their best in a way, or at the most focused, I think, compared to just being out in the world and sort of distracted and in our thoughts. But in that moment of going into the zone when we do our work, our goal is to really allow ourselves in our work to just express as cleanly as possible who we actually are, what we are at our core. And it's a very simple thing in a way. And it's not requiring any decoration. You don't have to be bigger. Oh, it's elusive in a way. Because when you really find it, it's so simple. And every time I find it, I think it can't be that simple, but it is. It is when you really let yourself express as yourself, as which is often an expression of what you're most interested in, of what you actually care about. There's an effortlessness to it that doesn't feel like work. There's an ease to it that doesn't feel special, but it is. People allowing themselves to just be themselves without the veil of what they think they're supposed to be, without trying too hard. It's rarer than you would think, but that's our job. And isn't that great? Isn't that great? You just got to be yourself. I remember Gary Shandling, the first time he went on the Tonight Show, big deal for comedians. Big deal for comedians back in the day. That could make or break your career. That would be it. Jerry Seinfeld talked about those days and how there was before you went on the night show and after, and that would kind of decide for a lot of them. And Gary Shandling wrote in his diary before he went on that day, he wrote, just be Gary. It's good advice. Good advice for us all. Yeah. Hey, thanks for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, say so. Say you liked it. I want to hear from you. And if you don't want to miss a dose, subscribe. You know what to do. Yes, you do. So until next week, this is Bill Kenower. Stay fearless.